You know what? I'm really excited is that you went to this unbelievable veteran event, kind of for like 4 days, was it? How long was it?
Yes. Yeah, so it was a good 4-day conference, the Military Influencer Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Fantastic event. Ran into over 27 people who were guests on the podcast, which is great just to reconnect with them and some meeting for the first time in person, which is awesome. And then also meeting all these new potential guests and these veteran-owned businesses, these new organizations I didn't know about, just people doing great things for the veteran community. It's just fantastic to be able to spend that whole time really just networking for 4 days and having a lot of fun and laughing.
What do you think the overall theme at that conference is?
So it covers a little bit of everything. So part of it is influencing, obviously, but I would say networking is probably the number one thing. And a lot of people spend a lot of time networking, either because we got a bunch of booths set up, so you may hang out at a booth and talk to somebody for a while. You go get a coffee together and sit down and talk. And then we also there's a job fair, career fair day as well, where a bunch of these companies come in looking to hire veterans. So you get the people who are out there job seeking get the opportunity to come in and start talking to businesses right away. And there's just so many great opportunities. It's amazing.
That definitely. Let's kind of, delve deeper into the specifically enough how that conference was structured for the 4 days.
Okay, so basically we it starts with the general hall where you have all the booths set up. So you can go in there and you can learn about businesses you didn't know about, services you didn't know about, of course, networking. Then throughout the day, you have every imaginable class you can think of. There were classes on how to start a podcast. There were classes on how to do a federal resume. And there's panels going on all the time. So you got this whole calendar you can look at and pick and choose the different things that apply to you and what you want to learn about. And you can go to those. And then Parade Deck, which is one of the organizations we're affiliated with for the podcast, they have a stage set up. So they're running live interviews for 4 days straight. And as a podcast, we got to do a live podcast through them as well, which was awesome. We've had a lot of fun doing that, and it was our second year doing it with them. So it's just there's just so much going on, But the beauty of it is you get the calendar ahead of time, so you can really sit down and look at it and go, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. This is definitely something I have to do. And then, of course, you got all the social events that happen at night as well.
And those events are pretty wild, right? So you have the social.
I'm not
What do
going to
you
say
think?
that veterans in a room during a social event get crazy, but
So let's talk about. So you said there are other veteran podcasts. How many podcasts were at that event?
So they weren't all specifically podcasts that were doing it. The Parade Deck, they handle a bunch of different things, and they deal with um, some military podcasts, veteran podcasts. They deal with other people who are just known commodities in the veteran community and giving them a platform to talk about what they're doing. So there were a couple of us that actually did live podcasts this year, and then several of them were like interviews and panel type things.
Okay. So so you talked about that. What do you think the most beneficial thing is networking? How much time for those 4 days? So people that want to attend next year how much time do you get to network? Because sometimes there's too many activities, right? You don't even get the chance to really chat.
That is one thing I actually have heard a couple of my friends talk about is they want to see a little bit more downtime put into the calendar so that people can actually sit down and have a coffee or go to lunch together or what have you, because the schedule is literally packed. From 8 o'clock till about 5 o'clock, there is stuff going on the entire time. And then of course you got the evening activities. So it, you make it what you want to make it. So last year was the first one I went to. I didn't know what to expect. I was going out there knowing that we were doing a live podcast, and my main goal was to book out my next season, which I accomplished that goal when we did the live podcast. I was also able to meet a bunch of people, which was cool. This year, I went in really with the plan of going to every booth and just meeting as many people as possible. And so I stopped at every booth, I shook every hand, I talked to everybody I could, and just got to know what people are into, what they're doing, and I learned about some amazing organizations I'd never even heard of. So it was fantastic, the whole thing. And the beauty of it is you make it what you want to make it, and it can be so much if you really want it to be.
And I think that the key thing is veterans that you really bring the thing to the table of getting to see all them because they all had great transition stories. How
Oh
many?
yeah.
Just imagine if you could just tell the conference once the foundation starts, I'll just interview everyone that's there.
Yeah, and that was
I
the
get,
beauty of it is I was able to tell them about what we're working on with the foundation, and there was a lot of excitement about that. And then the look in some people's eyes when they find out that you have a transition focused on or a podcast focused on the military transition, and they didn't know that we existed either. So they learn about us, and then they're excited to find out that if they're an educational thing, they can come on and talk about the education piece. If they're an entrepreneur, they can come on and talk about being an entrepreneur. And if they're working in transition, they can do that as well. Come on and talk about that. So the whole thing was amazing. I'm on cloud nine this week. I really had a great time.
and was it in Florida?
No, it was in Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. Okay, so you
Yep.
just got back. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
You made it right before all these did you have to deal with anything with the hurricane?
So we basically got like a tropical storm here at my house. We were without power for about 12 hours, but other than that, we skated free without any damage. And I really I pray for all those that are still dealing with all the trauma from that storm. That was a massive storm that came through and did so much damage, and hopefully we can get the resources out there that we need to get out there.
All right. Best place to find info on you.
Easiest place is vetsospodcast.com. You can find us all our stuff.